The night market on Draxon Station never slept. Beneath the flickering neon lights and humming power generators, hundreds of beings from across the galaxy gathered to trade, barter, and buy, but not everything sold here was merchandise. Some things were far more precious and far more tragic. Nalira stood inside the metal cage, her lavender skin pale under the harsh lights. Her hands gripped the bars, knuckles white with tension. She was tall and slender, with silver markings that traced down her arms like flowing rivers. Her people, the Valorians, were known for their beauty and grace. Tonight, that beauty was her only currency. Her daughter's face haunted her mind. Little Kira, only 5 cycles old, lay dying in a medical shelter 3 sectors away. The disease had no name in the common tongue, but it ravaged Valorian children without mercy. The medicine existed, rare and expensive, locked behind walls of credits that Nalira could never climb. She had sold everything she owned, begged every friend, worked every job. Nothing was enough, so she made the choice no mother should ever make. She would sell herself. The auctioneer, bulky Craxian with 4 arms and a voice like grinding metal, slammed his staff against the platform. The crowd pushed closer, eyes gleaming with interest and cruelty. Nalira forced herself to stand straight, to look dignified, even as shame burned through her chest. For Kira, she told herself. Everything for Kira. Bidding started low. 50 credits. Then 70. 100. Each number was a knife twisting deeper. She scanned the crowd, seeing the usual faces of the market. Merchants who wanted servants. Pirates who wanted something darker. Slavers who saw only profit in flesh. Then she saw him. A human stood at the back of the crowd, half hidden in shadow. He was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a worn jacket and boots marked with the dust of a dozen worlds. His hair was dark, touched with gray at the temples. His face was weathered, marked with old scars, but his eyes were different from the others. They held something she had not seen in this place. They held sorrow. The bidding climbed. 200. 300. The auctioneer's voice grew more excited as the numbers rose. Nalira's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Every second brought her closer to losing herself, but closer to saving Kira. Then the human's voice cut through the noise like a blade through smoke. 5,000 credits. The market fell silent. Every head turned. The auctioneer's jaw dropped open, his multiple eyes widening in shock. 5,000 was more than 10 times the expected price. It was enough to buy a small ship or fund a colony for a year. Nalira stared at the human, her breath caught in her throat. Why would anyone pay so much? What could he possibly want that was worth that price? Terror and hope warred inside her chest, 2 armies clashing in the space where her heart used to be. The auctioneer recovered quickly, greed flashing across his features. 5,000. Going once. Going twice? He paused, letting the silence stretch like a held breath. Sold to the human. The cage door clanged open. Nalira's legs nearly gave out beneath her, but she forced herself to walk forward with dignity. The crowd parted as she moved toward the human, their whispers following her like hungry ghosts. The auctioneer handed the human a control device for the collar they had locked round her neck, but the human did not reach for it. Instead, he pressed the release button. The collar fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Nalira froze, staring at him in confusion and disbelief. His brown eyes met hers, steady and calm. "My name is Marcus," he said quietly, "and you are not a slave." The unexpected kinness Nalira could not move. The words made no sense in any language she knew. She stood in the middle of the crowded market, the collar lying at her feet like a dead serpent, and tried to understand what was happening. Around them, the crowd murmured in confusion and disappointment. The auctioneer looked furious, but dared not challenge a buyer who had paid so much. Marcus gestured toward the far end of the station. "My ship is docked at Bay 17. Will you come with me?" It was phrased as a question, not a command. Nalira's mind struggled to process this. She had sold herself. She had expected chains, orders, pain. Instead, this human spoke to her as if she had a choice. But what choice did she really have? She needed the credits to buy Kira's medicine. And this man now controlled her fate whether he used a collar or not. Yes, she whispered, her voice barely audible above the market noise. They walked through the winding corridors of Draxon Station in silence. Nalira kept expecting Marcus to grab her arm, to pull her along like property. But he simply walked beside her, matching his pace to hers. His presence was large but not threatening, like a mountain that provided shelter rather than casting shadow. The ship was smaller than she expected. A light freighter designed for speed and efficiency rather than comfort. But it was clean, well-maintained, and when Marcus opened the door for her, she saw something that made her chest tighten. There was a small cabin with an actual bed, a table with food laid out, and no chains anywhere in sight. "The cabin is yours," Marcus said, setting down a bag near the door. "The lock works from the inside. You can seal yourself in if it makes you feel safer." Nalira turned to face him, her silver eyes searching his face for the trap, for the moment when the mask would fall away. "Why are you doing this? What do you want from me?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. He moved to the small galley and poured 2 cups of water, offering one to her. When she did not take it, he set it on the table and took a drink from his own. 3 years ago, he began slowly, I had a family, a wife and a son. We were traveling to a new colony world when our transport was attacked by raiders. They took my wife to sell her. They killed my son because he was too young to be worth anything. His voice remained steady, but Nalira could hear the ocean of pain beneath the calm surface. I was off ship on a supply run. By the time I got back, they were gone. I spent a year searching, but I never found her. Nalira's hand moved to her chest, pressing against the ache that bloomed there. Marcus continued, his eyes distant. After that, I started doing what I do now. I traveled to places like Draxon Station. I watched the auctions. When I see someone being sold who does not deserve that fate, I buy them and set them free. You are the 43rd person I have freed. 43, Nalira repeated, the number feeling impossible. How can you afford this? A small, sad smile touched Marcus's lips. My wife came from a wealthy family. They gave me everything when she died, thinking money would ease the pain. It does not. But at least I can use it for something that matters. Nalira sank into the chair, her legs finally giving out. For the first time since entering the cage, tears threatened to break free. She had expected cruelty, had steeled herself for suffering, and instead found this broken man trying to save others because he could not save his own. I have a daughter, she said suddenly, the words spilling out before she could stop them. Kira, she is 5 cycles old, and she is dying. There is medicine that can save her, but it costs 3,000 credits. That is why I sold myself. Marcus's expression shifted, something fierce and protective flashing in his eyes. Where is she now? In a medical shelter on Valor Prime. They will care for her for another 10 days. After that, her voice broke. She could not finish the sentence. Marcus stood and moved to the ship's console. His fingers flew across the controls, pulling up star charts and trade routes. Valor Prime is 4 days from here if we push the engines. We can get the medicine on Halcyon Station. It is on the way. They have the best medical supplies in this sector. Nalira stared at him, hope and disbelief tangled together in her chest like warring vines. You would do this? Help me save her! Marcus turned to face her fully, and for the first time, she saw him smile. It was small and sad, but genuine. I could not save my son. Maybe I can save your daughter. The ship hummed through the darkness of space, a small point of light traveling between distant stars. Nalira stood at the observation window, watching the streaks of starlight blur past as they moved through a minor hyperlane. For days, Marcus had said. For days to reach Halcyon Station, obtain the medicine. And then, another journey to Valor Prime. Time was both her enemy and her fragile hope. Behind her, she heard Marcus working in the engine room. He had been there for hours, coaxing more speed from the aging systems. The ship was old, but well-loved, every surface bearing the marks of careful maintenance. It reminded her of its owner, weathered but strong. Carrying the weight of years with quiet dignity, she found herself drawn to the engine room doorway. Watching as Marcus adjusted a series of power relays, his hands moved with practiced confidence, and she noticed the scars that marked his knuckles and forearms. These were hands that had fought, worked, and survived. "You should rest," he said without looking up. "We have a long journey ahead." "I cannot sleep," Nalira admitted. "Every time I close my eyes, I see Kira's face. I wonder if she is frightened, if she knows I will come back for her."
Oh my God.
Marcus set down his tools and wiped his hands on a cloth. "Tell me about her. What is she like?" A smile touched Nalira's lips, the first genuine one in weeks. "She is curious about everything. She asks 1,000 questions every day. Why are stars different colors? Where does the rain come from? Do the moons have names?" Nalira's voice grew softer. Her father used to answer every question with such patience. He would make up stories if he did not know the real answer. Fantastic tales that would make her laugh. "He is gone?" Marcus asked gently. Nalira nodded, the old grief settling over her like a familiar cloak. "A transport accident 2 cycles ago. He was returning from a mining contract when the ship's core failed. 20 people died. Kira still asks when he will come home." She pressed her hand to the cool metal wall, grounding herself. "I tell her he is traveling among the stars now, watching over us." They fell into silence, but it was not uncomfortable. It was the silence of 2 people who understood loss, who had both loved and lost, and somehow continued to breathe despite the weight. Over the following days, they fell into a rhythm. Marcus taught Nalira how to navigate using the star charts, his patient explanations filling the quiet hours. She cooked meals using the limited supplies, surprised to find that the simple act of preparing food brought her a measure of peace. They talked about their worlds, their cultures, the strange and beautiful things they had seen in their travels. On the 3rd night, the ship's proximity alarm shrieked to life. Marcus rushed to the cockpit, Nalira close behind. 3 ships appeared on the scanner, bearing markings she recognized with cold dread. Craxian pirates. "Hold on," Marcus said tersely, his hands flying across the controls. The ship lurched as he threw it into evasive maneuvers. Weapons fire lit up the darkness around them, bright streaks of energy that barely missed their hull. Nalira strapped herself into the co-pilot's seat, her heart racing. "Can we outrun them?" "Not with our current engine output." Marcus's jaw tightened as he dove beneath their firing arc. "I need to reroute power from life support to the engines." "Can you manage the shield controls?" She had never operated a ship's systems before, but fear sharpened her focus. "Tell me what to do." Marcus guided her through the process, his voice steady, even as the ship shook from a glancing hit. Nalira's fingers trembled as she redirected power, balancing the shields to protect their most vulnerable sections. They worked together like dancers learning a new rhythm, anticipating each other's movements. A lucky shot from one pirate caught their starboard engine. Alarms blared as the ship spun wildly. Marcus fought the controls, muscles straining as he forced the vessel back on course. In that moment, thrown together by the violent motion, Nalira found herself pressed against Marcus's side. His arm came around her instinctively, steadying her. Their eyes met. In that fraction of a second, surrounded by danger and chaos, something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, a connection that went deeper than words. Nalira's breath caught, and she saw her own surprise reflected in Marcus's expression. Then the moment passed. Marcus returned his focus to flying, executing a dangerous maneuver that brought them dangerously close to a nearby asteroid field. The pirates, either unwilling or unable to follow, broke off their pursuit. As the danger faded and silence returned to the ship, Nalira realized her hand was still clutching Marcus's arm. She released it slowly, feeling the warmth of his skin, even through the fabric. Her heart raced, but no longer just from fear. That night, as repairs were made and systems stabilized, Nalira lay in her cabin staring at the ceiling. She thought of her late husband, of the love they had shared. She thought of the guilt that came with feeling her heart stir for another. But most of all, she thought of Marcus's steady presence, his quiet strength, and the way his touch had made her feel safe for the first time in years. Halcyon Station materialized before them like a jewel suspended in the void, its rotating rings glittering with thousands of lights. It was one of the largest trading hubs in the sector, a place where credits could buy almost anything, including life-saving medicine for a dying child. Marcus docked the ship with practiced ease. Though Nalira noticed the tension in his shoulders, the damaged engine had held together, but barely. They would need repairs before making the final journey to Valor Prime. "The medical district is on Ring 3, Marcus said as they disembarked. "Stay close. Stations like this can be dangerous if you do not know your way." It moved through crowded corridors filled with beings from 100 different worlds. Nalira marveled at the diversity, at the chaos and energy that pulsed through every corner. But beneath her wonder, anxiety gnawed at her. They were so close now, so close to saving Kira. The medical supplier was a Tyvarian, species known for their skill with pharmaceuticals. Her 6 eyes examined them with interest as Marcus explained what they needed. The price was steep, 2,500 credits. But Marcus paid without hesitation, as the Tyvarian prepared the medication, carefully packaging it in a temperature-controlled case. Nalira felt tears prick her eyes. This was real. This was happening. Her daughter would live. "Thank you," she whispered to Marcus, her voice thick with emotion. "I will spend the rest of my life repaying this debt." Marcus's hand found hers, his touch gentle. "There is no debt. Kira's life is payment enough." They were returning to the ship when everything went wrong. A group of 6 armed thugs emerged from a side corridor, weapons drawn. The leader, a scarred Craxian, grinned with too many teeth. Well. The human who freed the Valorian slave. "Word travels fast in these parts." He gestured with his weapon. "Hand over your credits and the medicine, and maybe we let you live." Marcus stepped in front of Nalira, his body a shield. "Walk away." "This does not concern you?" The Craxian laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Everything on this station concerns us. Now, are you going to cooperate, or do we take what we want from your corpses?" Time seemed to slow. Nalira saw Marcus's hand move to his belt, saw the flash of metal as he drew a weapon she had not known he carried. The corridor erupted into chaos. Energy bolts filled the air, and Marcus moved with deadly grace, each shot precise and controlled. Nalira grabbed the medicine case and pressed herself against the wall, her heart thundering. She saw one thug trying to flank Marcus, and without thinking grabbed a metal pipe from nearby maintenance supplies. As the attacker passed her position, she swung with all her strength. The pipe connected with a satisfying crack, and the thug went down. Marcus glanced back at her, surprise and something else flashing in his eyes. Pride, perhaps? Respect. Together, they fought their way back to the ship. Marcus took a graze to his shoulder, but they made it inside and sealed the door. As the ship lifted off, unauthorized and with station security surely on their tail, they collapsed in the cockpit, breathing hard. "Are you hurt?" Marcus asked, his hand already checking her for injuries. "No, I am fine." "You are bleeding." Nalira pulled off his jacket, revealing the wound. It was not deep, but it needed attention. Her hands shook as she retrieved the medical kit. As she cleaned and bandaged his shoulder, their faces were close in the small space. Marcus's hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing away a smear of dirt. "You were brave back there." "I was terrified," she admitted. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it. Their eyes locked, and this time neither looked away. The tension that had been building between them for days reached a breaking point. Marcus leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull back, to stop this. But Nalira did not want to stop. Their lips met in a kiss that was gentle at first, tentative like 2 wounded souls testing whether they were allowed to feel joy again. Then it deepened, became more urgent, fueled by days of growing connection and the adrenaline still singing in their veins. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Nalira felt tears on her cheeks. "I should not feel this way. My husband would want you to live," Marcus said softly. "Would want you to be happy. Just as my wife would want that for me." Nalira pressed her forehead to his. "I am afraid." "Afraid of losing someone again?" "Afraid of betraying his memory." Marcus's arms came around her, holding her close. Love is not betrayal. The heart is big enough for all we have lost and all we might find. He pulled back to look at her. But if you are not ready, I will wait. I will wait as long as you need. Nalira kissed him again, pouring into it all the fear and hope and desperate longing she had been holding back. I am ready, she whispered. I am ready to live again. That night, they came together in the quiet of his cabin, two broken people, finding wholeness in each other's arms. It was tender and fierce, healing and passionate, a promise made without words that they would face whatever came next together. Valor Prime rose before them, a world of blue oceans and green continents, wrapped in wisps of white cloud. Nalira pressed her hand against the viewport, her heart in her throat. Somewhere down there, in a small medical shelter, her daughter waited. The journey from Halcyon Station had taken 3 days longer than planned due to necessary repairs and avoiding patrols. Looking for the ship that had left without clearance, every delay had been agony, but Marcus had pushed the ship as hard as he dared. And Nalira had spent the time dividing her attention between monitoring communications from the shelter and stealing precious moments with Marcus. What had bloomed between them was fragile and new, like a flower pushing through scorched earth. They had not spoken of the future, had not made grand plans. But in the quiet hours, tangled together in the darkness, Nalira had allowed herself to imagine what it might be like. A life not just surviving, but truly living. For herself, for Kira, perhaps even for the three of them together. But first, they had to save her daughter. The medical shelter was located in the northern district of Valoria City. Marcus landed the ship at a public dock, and they rushed through the streets. The medicine case clutched tightly in Nalira's arms. Her legs felt weak. Her breath came in gasps. But she pushed herself forward. The shelter's doctor, an elderly Valorian woman named Serena, met them at the entrance. Her expression was grave. You came back. I was not certain you would make it in time. Nalira's blood turned to ice. Is she? She lives, but barely. The disease has progressed rapidly. Come, quickly. They followed Serena through sterile corridors to a small room where Kira lay in a medical pod. The child was so small, so fragile, her lavender skin pale and her breathing shallow. Nalira's knees nearly buckled, but Marcus's hand on her back steadied her. Kira, she whispered, moving to her daughter's side. Kira, my love, I am here. I brought the medicine. You are going to be well. The girl's silver eyes fluttered open, unfocused and dim. Mama? Yes, sweet one. I am here. Nalira looked at Serena. Please give her the medicine. Please save her. Serena took the case with practiced efficiency, preparing the injection with swift, sure movements. The needle went into Kira's arm, and the golden liquid flowed into her veins. Then there was nothing to do but wait. Marcus stood beside Nalira, his presence a silent comfort. She leaned into him, letting his strength support her. Minutes stretched like hours. The medical monitors beeped steadily, tracking heartbeat and oxygen levels. Then, slowly, color began to return to Kira's skin. Her breathing deepened, became stronger. The monitors showed improving vitals. Serena smiled, the first true smile Nalira had seen from her. The medicine is working. She will need rest and continued treatment, but she will recover fully. Nalira broke down then, sobbing with relief so profound it hurt. Marcus's arms came around her, holding her as she cried out weeks of fear and desperation. Kira slept peacefully, truly peacefully, for the first time in months. Over the following days, Kira grew stronger. Color returned to her cheeks, light to her eyes, and soon she was asking her endless questions again. When she finally met Marcus, she studied him with the serious consideration only children can manage. Are you the one who helped Mama save me? She asked. Marcus knelt to her level. I helped, yes. But your Mama is the brave one. She did everything to make sure you would be well. Kira considered this, then threw her small arms around his neck. Thank you. Will you stay with us? Nalira's heart clenched. She and Marcus had not discussed what would happen after Kira recovered. He had his mission, his path of freeing slaves across the galaxy. She had her life here, her home, her daughter to raise, but Marcus looked at her over Kira's shoulder, his eyes asking a question. That evening, after Kira had fallen asleep, they sat together in the shelter's small garden. The twin moons of Valor Prime hung in the sky like watchful eyes. "I have been thinking," Marcus said quietly. "I have spent 3 years trying to fill a void that can never truly be filled. Saving strangers was my way of coping with loss, of making meaning from tragedy, but perhaps it is time for something more." Nalira took his hand. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I found something I was not looking for. I found you." And Kira, he turned to face her fully. "I know it is fast. I know it might be too soon. But I want this. I want mornings with Kira asking me questions I cannot answer. I want evenings watching you smile over something small and beautiful. I want to build a life, a real life, not just exist between missions." Tears spilled down Nalira's cheeks, but they were tears of joy. "I want that too. I want all of it. But your mission will continue," Marcus said firmly. "But perhaps with a home to return to. A family to remind me why the fight matters." He cupped her face gently. "If you will have me." Nalira kissed him, tasting salt and hope and the promise of tomorrows yet to come. "Yes, yes, we will have you." 3 months later, Marcus stood in the garden behind the small house they had rented on the outskirts of Valoria's city. Kira ran through the flowers, completely healthy now, chasing a butterfly with delighted laughter. Nalira worked in the kitchen, preparing the evening meal, her voice carrying through the open window as she sang an old Valorian lullaby. Marcus had not stopped his work entirely. He still took missions, still freed those trapped in chains. But now he came home. He came home to Kira's questions and Nalira's embrace, to a life that was messy and beautiful and full of love. He thought of his wife and son sometimes, carried them in his heart like precious stones. They would never be forgotten, never be replaced. But alongside that old love, new love had grown, proving that the heart was indeed big enough for all we have lost and all we have found, as Kira called out for him to catch the butterfly with her. Marcus smiled and joined the chase. The stars wheeled overhead, endless and eternal, and somewhere among them, the galaxy continued its dance of cruelty and kindness, of loss and hope. But here, in this small garden on Valor Prime, 3 souls had found each other in the darkness and had chosen to create light.